Now's the time in our service for meditation, so I invite you to get comfortable in your seat and get those feet firmly planted on the floor. If you're comfortable, close your eyes. Take some deep breaths in. Let those shoulders relax. I invite you to see a big golden ball of light up above your head, above your crown chakra. And as you're breathing in, you're breathing that golden light down through the top of your head. And as you do so, it begins to release and relax tension in your body. So you let go of the temples, the forehead. Relax your eyes, your mouth, your chin, your neck. Let the tension go and simply float out through the bottom of your feet, all the way into Mother Earth. See that golden light as you breathe it into your chest area. We release any tension from the shoulders, the abdomen. Just seeing the golden light helping us to let go of any place that feels tension or discomfort, anything that no longer serves. We're releasing it now and sending it out. We breathe that golden light down all the way into our root chakra, the base of us, the root of understanding, the place where we feel safe and secure. We let go of any fear, doubt, concern, and we just let it flow out down through our legs, through the bottoms of our feet. Anything that no longer serves, feeling the tension releasing from the hips, the legs, the knees, the ankles and the feet. Releasing it all now into Mother Earth to be transmuted. And now we can feel our shoulders are off our earlobes and our breath has slowed and calmed down. I invite you now to see your breath going in and out of your heart space so that each time you breathe in, your heart expands. You might bring into your mind something or someone that makes you feel love in your heart. It might be that new grandchild. It might be a significant other. It might be a place that you love to go that just opens your heart. And as you breathe in now, a pink love light forms all around your heart. With every breath you take, focusing on that love, your heart expands and opens further wide. And now I invite you to picture the earth as a small ball right in front of you. We're going to raise our hands in a blessing position as we breathe in and we send that pink love light down through our shoulders and our arms and out our hands as we send that love to our planet. See our country completely surrounded in pink love light. See our entire planet with every sentient being having a smile on their face. See them feeling the love that you're sending from yourself, from your beautiful heart, out into the world to bless everyone, everywhere, to know the truth for them, that they can know how precious and special they are. And now I invite you to see that pink light returning back to you now as it travels back up your hands, through your arms and shoulders, and right back into your heart as you release your hands back into your lap. There is never any separation between us and the love of God, and because we are all energy and everything is all energy, we can send our love anywhere. We can choose to see peace and send it anywhere. Because at this particular time in our country and in our world and in our lives, we choose peace. We choose to be the peace, to be the love that Jesus taught about. We model that behavior and hold that in our hearts and see that unfolding. Because the more of us that can see that and feel that and be that and live from that, the higher the vibration of our planet, the higher the consciousness of everyone. And for that we all benefit. And so we say thank you, indwelling Spirit, for this sweet time to send our love, our light, and our peace out to our country and to our world, holding that truth in our hearts, that we can believe it and we can see it and we can be grateful for it before we actually see it manifest before our physical eyes. And so we say, thank you, God, that this is so. And as we return our focus back into this room, whenever you're ready, just open those beautiful eyes. Today we're talking about growing our spiritual understanding. And I want to share a story with you because we're in Lessons in Truth. And I have this LUT back in Texas that started out like a sponge. She was new to New Thought. And she started taking a lot of classes and asking all kinds of questions. And she really wanted to get an understanding of what was going on with the New Thought teachings. So she went out to Unity Village and she began to take classes, and she went there for a whole week of SEE, Spiritual Education and Enrichment, and she came home. This is when I was associate minister in my previous ministry. She made an appointment to see me. She was so far along in the path. She had taken probably 15 or 18 classes. She was really on her way and wanted to become a licensed Unity teacher. She makes this appointment with me, and she comes into my office and she says, I quit. I'm not going back. I'm not doing this anymore. And I was like, what? What's going on? Well, what happened was she was having chemicalization because her Southern Baptist upbringing that, she had lived most of her life with, right, was coming up against the spiritual teachings of Unity and New Thought. And she was having a meltdown. She was just literally having a meltdown. She said, it just doesn't work for me. I just don't get it. So anyway, I calmed her down. And not everybody that goes out to Unity Village and takes classes has chemicalization, but she was definitely having that. So Welcome to the 4th week of our Lessons in Truth, our Fall Adventures in Faith program. We are doing 2 chapters of Lessons in Truth every week, and this week we are doing definitions of terms and spiritual understanding. Dr. Katie thought it was extremely important that we have a really in-depth understanding of what some of the languaging is, and that's why she has this whole chapter on chemicalization, personality, and individuality. And then the next chapter we're doing is spiritual understanding. So what happened, back to Texas, what happened to the licensed Unity teacher candidate was that I calmed her down, and I reminded her that, in modern terms, this is like cognitive dissonance. That's basically what chemicalization is, where you have these ideas that come together and they don't mix. And I just calmed her down and I said, don't do anything drastic this moment. You're just having this emotional adjustment and this mental adjustment that's going on with you, and we do have adjustments, and then we suddenly get it, or something will change. And so just stay with it, just back off and relax and do your spiritual practices. And sure enough, she came around and it was all fine. But we become entrenched in what we have been raised in. We have that theology, that embedded theology that is part of us. It's part of who we are because that's how we were raised. And so sometimes those things don't quite match with what we're trying to understand. Dr. Katie compares what happens in chemicalization to what can happen to our mind and body. Very simple to look at when you pour soda into an acidic fluid like cider or sour milk. You pour them together and it gets all foamy and foamy and foamy, and but what happens is, what results is something better comes out of it. Something better comes from it. She says not everybody has that, but one substance basically neutralizes the other. So what happens is, we start out and we're so excited about it. We finally found our peeps. We found the people who think the way that we've known all along. We've found our tribe of people who understand the way we've been thinking. We didn't necessarily, the old God didn't fit us anymore. So we're looking for a better understanding of the God of our understanding. So things go along really well for quite a while, and then all of a sudden it sort of stops, or something happens and things aren't working as easily as they were. And we get frustrated. And sometimes we get off the path. We just completely quit New Thought and go back to where we felt comfortable again. That's okay too. We can do that. But what it is these new ideas meet with resistance to that old embedded theology. We have to change those beliefs in our subconscious if we're going to move into a new way of being. Remember, just because we end up in some sort of physical or mental stress about it, it's not a bad thing. It's actually just part of our growth, part of our understanding. And the good thing is, it's the quickest way to break up those old beliefs that no longer serve us anymore. It actually helps us along more quickly if we come into a chemicalization process. Because what happens is then we become a clearer channel for that divine life, the love, the wisdom, the power that we really are. We become a clear channel to be that, to let that flow in and through our lives. But we have to actually ride it out and wait and see where it goes. We have to have patience when the resistance shows up. So the next thing she really wants us to understand after chemicalization is the difference between personality and individuality. Personality is that human part of us. It's that part of us that changes all the time. It's the part of us that we think we are, but we're not. It's not the biggest part of us. Our individuality is the biggest part of us. If you think about when you go live someplace, how you pick up an accent? After you've lived someplace, you pick up an accent. Or think about teenagers. They change the way they look. They change their dress. They want to look differently because they want to fit in. Well, it's a persona, you see. The persona is a mask. It comes from the Greek word because the Greek actors and actresses wore all different kinds of masks to be the various parts in the theater. And so we take on different personas. If you think about it, how many different masks can you wear in a day? If you're a wife, a mother, a teacher, a daughter, a grandma, we can wear a lot of different masks. You have a different mask for work. Maybe you have a different mask for the golf course or the motorcycle group. You have a different mask for every single group that you are part of, because it's you thinking this is how people expect you to show up. It's not anything that's bad. It's just that we put on these different personas for various people because we think they expect us to be a certain way. It's just kind of the way our personality works. And I can tell you, we do it because we want to have a favorable impression, quite frankly. And I can tell you, there have been several times when I've been in a social gathering at somebody's house, and I ask them not to introduce me as their minister, because the minute somebody thinks you're a minister, they start treating you differently. You hear them actually say things, oh, well, I'm going to have to watch my mouth or my language or something. No, you know, I want people to be able to be authentic. I don't want them to be different around me. I want people to treat me as for who I am, just like everybody else, no different than anyone else. Personality can be transformed, and that's what we're going to talk about today, because metaphysically in the scriptures, John the Baptist represents that intellectual knowledge. John the Baptist could be loving and kind one moment, and then he could be just mean as all get out and harsh with people about their sins. He had to come, you see, to prepare us for Jesus. He said, he recognized that Jesus had that higher consciousness, and he actually said, he must increase and I must decrease, because John the Baptist metaphysically is represented by our personality. So there are two aspects of ourself: the personality that changes all the time, depending on circumstances, and that individuality of us that never changes, that God self of us, that eternal part of us, the part that Jesus really understood and lived from, the part that we aspire to live by. Jesus understood the full complexities of the humans and the fact that we have choice. He understood humanity and our potential. He understood that by decreasing personality, that sense of individuality would help us to enter the kingdom of heaven. And of course, that's the goal. That's that God consciousness that we're seeking to live from, where you absolutely know that you are one with God, that you have that God consciousness, that there is no separation between you and God. Each of us has that real, perfect self within us. So our goal for today, my goal, is to help you see that you have the power to end the game of masks. You don't have to have a bunch of masks that you have to put on for a bunch of different people. Once again, we see the personality as relative, changing always, part of the relative world, and our individuality as the absolute good, the God in us, the one that we want to have more in line with our lives than anything else. So you may ask, so exactly how do we do this? How do we become more increase of individuality and decrease of personality? Well, we can live in that consciousness of unchanging individuality or the divine self when we automatically, effortlessly, unconsciously, our individuality will more and more shine through our personality if we put focus on the individuality. We have to study the principles. We have to treat the ego like a small child. We can't brag or boast. We have to kind of zip our mouth and live from that peace and love of who we are, because it's so beautiful when our Christ light shines brighter than our personality. I can remember, maybe in my early 30s or something, and I was partnering with a registered nurse, and we had a company where we had older people living in apartment complexes. She did all the nursing, and I did all the social work. And I can remember I was showing a family an apartment. I remember this as clear as it was yesterday, and I don't know why. But we were coming down the stairs. I had shown this apartment to a guy for his dad was coming to live with us. And he said, "Where on earth did you get that personality?" And I was sort of taken aback because I couldn't decide, is that a good thing or a not such a good thing? And I decided that maybe he was confusing my personality with my passion for keeping people out of nursing homes and keeping them in a place where they could be monitored, but they'd still have their own apartment, right? It was the best of both worlds. They had their own space, but they had people around that cared for them and checked on them. I never will forget that, and I still don't know why that stands out in my mind, except as I came into unity, I realized I'm hoping that what he was seeing was more my individuality, my care for people, my concern about his dad having a safe place in which to live, not just the fact, and the fact that I had enthusiasm about being able to care for his dad. Anyway, I just thought that was so funny. What we think we are often is our personality, but what we truly are is individuality first and foremost. And so what we are called upon is to actually be ourselves, to act like we love ourselves, irregardless of any flaws or faults that we think that we have. Because after all, who is absolutely perfect? Nobody really, except in our Christed beingness. So we dwell on that idea that within you is this perfect pattern of perfect man. And that seed in you, that Christ's seed in you, is growing and developing, and Spirit is nudging you, motivating you to change you into its likeness. Gradually, you become a changed person. No need to take off the mask. You'll be living as that authentic person that you came to be. As you accept yourself as you are, remember, this includes that you're a child of God. And so we just let our light shine brightly. So the next piece that Dr. Katie wanted us to understand is about spiritual understanding. She gives us a glimpse of the goal toward which all these principles and techniques point to. Our goal is spiritual understanding. The difference is because it's not intellectual knowledge. We can study and read and go to workshops after workshops and gain a bunch of knowledge, but it's not spiritual understanding. Spiritual understanding is not outside, it's only from within. The intellectual knowledge is just really us gathering other people's opinions and taking them as our own, you see. There's a great example in Matthew 16 when Jesus is with the disciples and he says to them, he says, "Who do you say is the Son of Man?" And automatically they said, well, some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, some say Jeremiah, or perhaps one of the other prophets. But Jesus said, but who do you say that I am? Because he's hearing them spout intellectual knowledge, not from the heart, right? Who do you say that I am? And they were quiet. They didn't say anything for a while. And suddenly Simon Peter said, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And this made Jesus so happy. Because he said, blessed are you, for flesh and blood has revealed this to you, not from the outside of himself, from hearing from other people, but my Father who is in heaven, which is, of course, from his own spiritual beingness. He paused, you see, and he listened. He listened to spirit. He listened from his heart, and he discerned from his spiritual understanding who Jesus really is. Spiritual understanding has to come from within. It comes from our sitting in the silence. It comes from our having spiritual practices and praying and meditating. It comes from us being awake and aware and noticing what we're noticing, paying attention to everything around us that's going on. That's what helps us to discern our spiritual understanding. Another really great example is from 1 Kings. When Solomon became a king, he had a mystical experience. He had a being that appeared to him in a dream and asked him what he wanted. And he said, give your servant, therefore, an understanding mind. And this made God very happy. Because he didn't ask for riches. He didn't ask for anything for himself. He asked for an understanding heart. So God said, not only would he receive the spiritual understanding that he asked for, but he would receive riches and honors all the rest of his life. He sought spiritual consciousness first. Spiritual consciousness of God over everything else. So why is it so important that we develop spiritual understanding? Because you see, without it, we wouldn't have feet under our prayers. It is the foundation of who we are. It is the foundation of us. It gives our spiritual activity something to stand on. It's a gift from God, just like grace. And it comes to us more or less quickly in proportion to how we use the light that we already have. How we live from that Christed beingness that we already are. So it's really a choice, isn't it? It's always a choice. So today, we're in Scriptures. We're in Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 13, where it says, when you search for me, you will find me, if you seek me with all your heart. So we put God first. We think about spiritual things first and foremost. When do God thoughts become active in us? When we form the habit of always thinking constructively and hopefully and remembering the essence of our being. What follows that attainment of God consciousness is complete freedom and restoration. That's that peace that passes understanding. What comes from that is the kingdom of heaven consciousness, where we're putting God first. We pray before we act. We take a deep breath and pause before we react to something that someone says or something we see on Facebook that stirs us up. We pause and we take a minute and we go within like the disciples did with Jesus. When we know and when we accept our divinity and our oneness, that is that spiritual consciousness that we seek to find. So there are 3 steps to spiritual understanding. The first one is to do the studying, to study, be a part of the groups, be a part of the book club, be a part of the quest, the lessons in truth, read the materials that we're studying, uplift yourself and learn about the concepts and the teachings of Jesus. The second one is to have such a desire in your heart that it's more important to you than almost anything else to have a spiritual understanding, to have that be one of your first priorities, is to develop your relationship with God and to understand the God of your being. The third one is to experience God, which you cannot do by studying only books and materials. You have to have an experiential experience. You don't know God unless you pray and meditate and sit in the silence and have an experience of what it feels like to have that connection. You can know about God, but you can't know God without the experience. That's the basis of spiritual understanding. Using the truth principles in your life and acting from the guidance that you receive. Dr. Katie says, what we need to do is to seek the revelation of the living Christ within our own being, each for himself, knowing that only this divinity come forth can make us powerful and happy. This is my wish for each and every one of you, that you bring it forth. You make it alive in your life. Okay, it's time for a little bit of humor. A lady walks into a post office. She's going to mail a package, and she notices like this middle-aged man over on the side, and he's got this stack of envelopes, pink envelopes, and he's putting love stamps all over them, and then he's spraying them with perfume, and like she's now like, I have to figure out what this guy's doing. And she goes over to him, and she asks him, what is it that you're doing with all these envelopes? He said, well, I'm sending out 1,000 cards signed, guess who? And she asks, why? And he said, well, it's pretty simple. I'm a divorce lawyer. Stirring up some stink, isn't he? I'm going to close today with Alan Cohen is our Course in Miracles guy, and he has a blog. And I ran across this, and I thought this was so precious for today. Alan says, I was standing at the counter of a snack bar at a children's zoo when a customer became quite nasty with the server. A part of his order had not been delivered correctly, and he made quite a stink. I recoiled thinking, what a mean, cruel person. Minutes later, I was passing the deer enclosure where I saw a man kneeling to pet a fawn. And I thought, that reminds me of St. Francis. When the man turned his head, I was astonished to see that it was the same fellow that had created the stink in the snack bar. Who was that man really? Was he the angry, abusive one or the gentle, saintly one? We might say that he was both. He had the propensity for both kindness and mean-spiritedness, each aspect bubbling forth in different situations. When we see the highest and best in ourselves, others, and situations, that is what we call forth. Dale Carnegie advised, give that person a fine reputation to live up to. The highest in us is the truth about us. And the brightest vision for the world around you is closer to the truth than fear would ever show us. Yes, continue to work for a better world. Meanwhile, holding in mind that in a greater mind, that world already exists, and we are stepping into it by trusting that the greater plan is already in progress. I believe that's the way it is, and so it is. Amen. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Now's the time in our service when we get to give from our good, and if you are at home and you're watching through the internet, if you would click that PayPal button, we would be so, so blessed. Let's say our blessing together. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, that this is so. Namaste, everyone. God bless.